Bam! Let's see what I can do with this. Okay, so this is basically grey and like a terracotta coloured clay that I'm gonna put together. Let's see what can happen. Yippee! So this is what happens I've basically got the clay and I've basically just started to pack it more together, and it's a good thing to do that once you've taken it out of the bag, is to just kind of press it together and roll it out, and don't worry about it getting too dry, because there's like a way for you to kind of flatten the surface so you don't get those kinds of like cracks and stuff showing up in the end. But it's good to just kind of make sure that once you've taken it out of the bag that it's kind of packed together, because you're going to actually work with it and make the slabs and the shapes and everything, you're going to want to set it aside for some time anyway. So don't worry about it looking dry and everything with these cracks, because as I mentioned, you're going to flatten them out anyway. So basically here what I have are my guides, and as you can see they're just like pieces of dowel that you put either sides of the clay, and once you put them to the side, you can basically just roll them out, and then they'll be that thickness. What I also do sometimes is I'll take a thicker piece of dowel on one side, like I have here, and then take another like more thin piece, so then when you roll it out, it's kind of like on an angle, and you can get some interesting results with that. But for this, I might do that on another piece later on, but for the moment I'm going to make my thick main piece of clay with this. You see these loads of little kind of cracks and stuff, and you can see even just by running my finger across them, the cracks will start to disappear. But as you can see, it's rolled out, and like I mentioned, it's starting to kind of not necessarily marble, but it's kind of the idea is that the two different shades of clay blend together, and now you can do this whether or not the clays are different colors just normally because you bought them that way, or if you decide to mix the clay together before you actually put both clays and roll it. The good thing about doing it like this is that you're kind of in the, not necessarily like it's in the moment, but you're kind of seeing where it goes. Like, I'm not planning on any of this, I don't want it to look a certain way. I think the better thing with mixing the colors with the clay before you mix the clays together or whatever it is that you're going to get more of a consistent effect with the clay, whereas this is just like, I'm not really planning, I'm just going with the flow, and whatever comes out, because obviously like on this side there's only a little bit of grey there and there, whereas most of it is like this on the terracotta side, and there's a few splits here and stuff like that, which we will kind of iron out. Now this is the tool I use to iron out. Now obviously a lot of tools that I have are, like the basic kind of set. You go on Amazon and you'll find like a basic kind of pottery and ceramics set, which is like, the most kind of basic things. And what we're going to do with this is, because it's more or less flat, that's what we're going to do. We're basically just going to score it and flatten out, and you can see like all the cracks will start to go the more you flatten out. You're not putting too much pressure on it, because what you're doing is kind of, this is like what I think about as like lightly ironing the damp shirt, but this is basically what you're doing. You're just kind of flattening it out, and what this also does is prevent the kind of clay from curling once it starts to dry, because at the moment it's too floppy for you to work with, especially if you want to build up slabs and everything. You need to kind of do that over time, and when it's more dry, it'll hold better. And this basically just helps to kind of keep it more or less flat and getting rid of all those cracks. So once you've done this on both sides, you can just set it aside to dry, and it can because this is such a thick piece, it can actually dry for about an hour or two, and even after then it'll still be floppy. There have been times when I've rolled this out at like 10 o'clock at night. I'll come back again at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's good to go. Well, for that piece I was doing anyway. So you kind of can get on with other things at this stage.
Now, before you bother telling me it's impossible.
No, it's perfectly possible. It's just bloody difficult.
Interesting. So Arthur keeps telling me it can't be done.
When you kind of score it across, sometimes you can get it to like bleed within one another. You see that kind of effect, which is something I really like working with. And yeah, just keep on going with it, and I'm just letting the clay kind of dictate what it's gonna do. Okay, so this is the final product, and I'm liking the way it looks, and it might seem a bit kind of complicated, and like how did it get to this stage from when I was just rolling it out, but I'm literally just putting slabs of clay and then just building it up. As I'm working on it, I kind of look at like a shape. So for example, that piece and this slab are the first ones that go together, and I'll kind of think about the negative space that isn't there, and I'll try to fill it with the clay, which is like more or less just left over from offcuts of the main slab which you saw in the previous clip, and I'll just start piecing them together, and it'll more or less build up into a point where I feel like there's negative space that needs to be filled. And there you have it. These are very random, but at the same time I'm kind of using the last slab that I cut and put in place as like a blueprint for the next one. Sometimes I might add a little bit of texture. I'm not really thinking about the shapes that I'm about to cut, but I'll just go for it. But sometimes I will think about texture, like for example this has got a bit of a rough texture, which I use a bit of a sponge, so when it was a bit more damp I just dabbed across it and it came with this very very like rough texture, like that. And there you go. That's my piece for the day. Yep. Just another shot like that. Yeah. One thing I will say about these shapes is that I'm not saying necessarily that it's like you're like a channel, and the art will kind of make itself, but there is an element of that. I remember in like a Stephen King book once where he said that when he's writing, or he kind of described the analogy of like if he's writing, then you know the story kind of tells itself and he's just the person writing it. The story is actually there, and it'll just kind of come out as he's writing, and that's kind of the way I like approach my work. Is I've just let it happen, and it's not that there's no thought of it. It's just random. It's kind of a balance between both. There is thought about it whilst it's happening, and you're mindful of okay, this is you get this kind of feeling of all right, I want to cut the clay like this, or I wanted to. Piece them together like that, and they'll just start to come together. And I guess the really important thing for me is when I'm doing it is just to trust those instincts and just go for it. And I think that you come up with some really amazing stuff where you just kind of let go about what you think it should look like, and just be in that moment and just let that moment take you away. And that sounds a bit kind of corny, but that's exactly what I kind of do. I'll just let the moment dictate what the art wants itself to be, what the clay wants itself to be. Sometimes I'll have no idea about what I'm doing, and it'll just happen the way it happens, and I'll just kind of understand as the piece gets together and you kind of glue things together and so forth. So it's really important to just kind of let the art happen.